Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scotty.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 87 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined by a man who wasn't on last week's show but he's back this week. It's Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Very good, my friend. Very good. So we're going to waste no time. We're going to dive straight into part one. Part one, of course, being the review part of the show. So we're going to start with a card that happened last weekend. There wasn't too much on last weekend, but we're going to start with a card that happened over in Norway. I think this is probably going to be the first time we're doing this. Actually starting and opening up the show with a card featuring a female boxer. So all the very best to the champion in this one. She managed to win yet again. She remains undefeated, 31-0 now. Cecilia Barakas. She also retained her WBC, WBA, IBF, IBO and WBO World Welterweight titles as well against Erica Farias, who had a record of 24-1, now 24-2. Cecilia Barakas pretty much won every round apart from one, so she did really well there. Unanimous decision across all three cards after 10 2-minute rounds. I saw a little setup of the arena actually. They actually put together the whole thing just for her, so that's amazing, man. So all the very best to her and her loyal trainer, Mr. Jonathan Banks, a good friend of the show. Moving over now to the US at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino, Verona, New York, USA. There's one fight to mention on this bill. We spoke about it just briefly, myself and Eddie Chambers last week. Regis Prograis, 19-0. I think he had 16 knockouts. He took on the also undefeated Joel Diaz Jr, 23-0 with 19 knockouts. It was for Regis Prograis' NABF Super Lightweight title. Now, a lot of people expected this to be a bit of a war. A lot of people expected Joel Diaz Jr to win this fight, but it was not what happened. Joel Diaz Jr just seemed to be, I don't know if he was out of his depth, I don't know if he was caught cold, I just don't know what exactly happened. Diaz Jr was knocked down 4 times in the second round, and Prograis just walked straight through him, really. He just absolutely bulldozed him, if you like, a human bulldozer in there, and did a serious job on Joel Diaz Jr. Now, that was Joel Diaz Jr.'s toughest fight going into the fight, and it was also Prograis' toughest fight going into the fight, so it didn't look like it for Prograis. He made very, very easy work of a good fighter there, and hopefully we see Joel Diaz Jr back in action very soon. We wish him the very best with his return. And also now Regis Prograis moves to 20-0 and he turns into a serious contender in the super lightweight division at 140. Moving over now to the Odyssey Arena in Belfast, Northern Ireland. We're going to start with the undercard. A couple fights to mention on the undercard. The return of Mike Perez. He's been out the ring since 2015, since being iced by Alexander Povetkin. We don't know if he was under any kind of unusual substances at that point in his career, Povetkin, but Mike Perez, I'm not going to, raise any flags, but he's in some seriously unbelievable shape. I talked about it again on last week's show. The man is absolutely ripped to shreds. He returned with a bang at cruiserweight. As we all know, he's moved down in weight. Looks absolutely shredded. He took on a man called Victor Biskak, who actually had an unbeaten record of 10-0. Mike Perez made very light work of him. I think it was really the first punch that landed. It was the first backhand that landed. I think he landed with a couple of jabs, maybe a couple of silly little left hooks that didn't really have much behind them. But the first proper shot, he went down and he looked for a way out straight away. Just picked up his paycheck and bounced, if you like. Hopefully the check doesn't bounce. I don't think that will happen. But no, it was very, 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 very quick, the fight. We didn't really get to see too much of Mike Perez. He moves to 20 22-2 with 1 draw, a KO there in round 1, but a terrible performance from his opponent. And it's very frustrating because we want to see more of Mike Perez. Hopefully he doesn't go on another 2-year or so hiatus and we don't see him in the ring. We need to see him back very, very soon. All the very best to Mike Perez. Also moving up the bill, a very, very good win here for Luke Watkins. He went into a fight against Ian Timms for the vacant Irish Cruiserweight title. Now Ian Timms was 13-3. He's a decent fighter. He's of a certain level. He's a decent fighter. Luke the Duke Watkins obviously being managed, or trained I should say, by the infamous Paddy Fitzpatrick, a man that we also like on this show. And Luke the Duke did the business. He marked the victory with a brutal knockout in the 4th round, a KO in 4. It was scheduled for 10, and Luke the Duke now becomes the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first black Irish Cruiserweight champion. It may even just be the first black Irish champion. I'm not even sure it's just in the Cruiserweight division. If I've got that wrong, you can definitely tweet me in. But no, a really, really good win there for Luke the Duke Watkins. It finished up with it was a good combination. It finished up with a straight right hand, straight down the pipe. And that was all she wrote. Ian Timms looked in a bad way. We wish him all the very best. And Luke the Duke now 11-0. They're talking about that potential fight against Tommy McCarthy, the man that was supposed to fight Mike Perez, and for whatever reason that fight didn't end up happening. So that'd be a really, really good fight there. So all the very best to Luke the Duke Watkins and Paddy Fitzpatrick moving forward. Also on the bill, James Tennyson took on Ryan Doyle. James Tennyson picked up the win, and also the vacant is now not vacant WBA International Super Featherweight title. Good win there. Ryan Doyle was pulled out after 6 rounds. So James Tennyson, as I said, 19-2. Ryan Doyle 14-2 with 1 draw. And a really impressive win here. Paul Hyland Jr. moved to 16-0 with a TKO in the 1st round over Adam Dingsdale. Adam Dingsdale brought to the table a record of 16-3, now 16-4 with 1 draw. Dingsdale was down twice in that 1st round. It was for the vacant IBF East and West Europe Light-Weight title. If I'm not mistaken, I think Paul Hyland Jr. was maybe even a slight underdog, so I'm not too sure about that. But yeah, really good win. He just it was kind of a shocking win. It was a real upset there. Fantastic win that for Paul Hyland Jr. And he really marks himself as a guy that you've got to watch out for in the lightweight division, a man that I think has a decently bright future. But now the main event, a man that we had on the show last week, a good friend of the show, an all-round nice guy in and outside of the ring. I won't say too much inside of the ring. He can be a little bit of a crafty bugger, but to be honest, he did not show up. He did not look himself. We're going to get straight down to it. Lee Haskins, the IBF World Bantamweight Champion, put his belt on the line against the undefeated up-and-coming Ryan Burnett, a man that is highly spoken of in the boxing world. Lee Haskins 34-3. Now, Haskins and Burnett, there was a lot of head clashes. I think that was just purely due to the two stances clashing. The obviously Lee Haskins being a southpaw, Ryan Burnett being orthodox. The feet were coming together a little bit, the heads were coming in, and there was a head clash early on in the fight. I think it may have been something like round 2 or 3, and it was a real bad head clash. Ryan Burnett actually came off worse of the two, but they both immediately were bleeding heavily. It was like straight down the middle of the forehead, if you like. Not the best place to have a cut as well. And Ryan Burnett, I mean, he looked like Harry Potter for a little bit. I know that he showed a bit of a funny side afterwards. He's come out with a picture of himself and some sort of blazer with some sort of homemade magic wand, but no, he really did look like Harry Potter in that fight. They did a great job in the corner with the cut, to be honest. We were a little bit worried that the fight could be stopped early and it would have to go to the cards prematurely, but I think that Lee Haskins is a man that is known to start pretty fast, and I don't think Ryan Burnett really allowed him to get in his groove. I don't want to make too many excuses for Lee Haskins, but I think Lee Haskins just did not really look himself. I'm not sure if it was the time out. I think he had about 9 months out of the ring. That may have played a part. It's not too long really in the modern day and age, but I don't know. I think that the speed of Ryan Burnett really threw Haskins off. I think that, compared to somebody like Stuart Hall, where you can say that was a decent fight, Stuart Hall's a really slow fighter if you compare him to Ryan Burnett. A lot of people, again, are calling for that fight now, but we're going to talk about what happened. Unfortunately, it went down as a split decision win for Ryan Burnett. It should have been unanimous. One judge gave it really, really wide to Lee Haskins. Now, it's since come out that the judge got the fighters' names wrong. I don't really want to talk too much and have too much of a rant on this, but that is shocking. I mean, to get the two fighters completely mixed up, I mean, that's unforgivable. I think since the fight, I think that the judge has, had his license took away. I think he won't be able to judge again, especially at that level. That was a real bad mistake. The judge was, I believe, in his 70s. I think maybe mid 70s as well. So, that's an appalling thing, to be honest, that we can take away from it. Lee Haskins was down in round 6 and round 11. He showed the heart of a champion, but to be honest, he just did not have enough. Ryan Burnett was too fresh, too unpredictable, too quick, and I think a little bit too strong in parts as well. We really saw a lot from Ryan Burnett. He answered a lot of questions. He answered a lot of critics. A lot of people were saying, he's highly talked about. He hasn't really done anything. And to be honest, I think we're all guilty of doing that. I think we all kind of said that he hasn't done anything on that level yet. He's talked about really highly by Adam Booth and his team of believers, but we hadn't seen it on that level. Well, now we have. Ryan Burnett, 17-0, perfect record, the new IBF World Bantamweight Champion. There's a lot of juicy fights for him out there now. But absolutely fantastic for Ryan Burnett. Seems a real nice kid. You could see the emotion on his face after the fight. He fulfilled a promise to his father that he'd become world champion. He's done it his way as well. And Lee Haskins, as I said, the heart of a real champion. He showed some grit, determination, and of course, most importantly, some balls in that fight. Lee Haskins, 34-4, and I'm really not too sure where he goes from here. He seems to be a man that really should have made more money than what he has. Should have been a bigger name than what he has been. He was at the top of the world for a while, and some people forget him. So it's a real shame. I feel very sorry for Lee Haskins, to be honest. But of course, we wish him the very best of luck, as we do Ryan Burnett. Moving over now to the Pioneer Event Center in Lancaster, California, United States. 2 fights to mention on this bill before we're done with the reviewing. A man that was on our show a couple weeks back, Brandon Rios, he returned to the ring after having 19 months out. He returned at welterweight. He put his opponent Aaron Herrera down in the 7th round with a body shot. I saw the shot. Aaron Herrera was absolutely done. Brandon Rios actually, I think, landed a really big body shot just before the one that, ended the fight. So props to Brandon Rios. I didn't watch the whole fight. I've just seen a few little clips of it, and I think that a few of the rounds were a little bit close. A few rounds were a little bit war-ish, a little bit warrior type. We know that that's the way Brandon Rios likes to fight, but it's not a great style if you want to have some longevity in the sport. We don't really want to see Brandon Rios in too many more wars, but when he sticks to his boxing, he is a good fighter. Also on that bill, Mario Barrios moved to 19-0, also with a TKO in round 7 over Rodriguez. That's Jose Luis Rodriguez, who had a record of 21-9. It was a body shot as well. So 2 body shots from the 2 fights that we've mentioned there, both in the 7th round. Mario Barrios 19-0 and Brandon Rios 34-3 with 1 draw. But that's really it from the USA. That's really it from last week in total. We're now going to welcome guest number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBA Light-Middleweight World Champion, Mr. Austin Trout. Austin, it's been a long, long time. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me back.
Hey, it's my pleasure, my friend. So, Austin, unbelievably, it's been over 18 months since we last spoke. You just got a win over Joey Hernandez back then, and you told me I'm a former and future world champion. And I said, I know that, Austin. Then you obviously got the fight with Jamal Charlo. I just want to talk about this fight just for a moment. For those that get confused between Jamal and Jamel. Jamal is the one that just moved up to middleweight, and he's the better of the 2 brothers in most people's opinion. So, Austin, you obviously had a very close fight with him, actually. You pushed him closer than anybody else has. What do you remember from that fight just over a year ago now?
I remember I was off to a little slow start, but I felt like I picked it up before the halfway mark. You know, it was a good close fight, and you know, hats off to Jamal. He's making me look good by being the good champion. So I'd love to relook at the film again, but you know, I was proud of my performance. It was definitely a good fight to be in, and the fans enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it was a good fight. It was a good fight. If you remember, Austin, we put out a list of fights that we'd like to see across all of the weight divisions in boxing about 2 months ago or so. And I actually said I'd like to see Jarrett Hurd fight Austin Trout, to which you replied saying, and I quote, "Abso-freaking-lutely." And then voila, it was like Father Christmas came early. The fight is now here. We're on to the next one. You're now fighting for the same belt, actually, that you fought for last time, the IBF Junior middleweight title. Jamal vacated the belt when he moved up. Tony Harrison and Jarrett Hurd fought for the vacant title. Tony Harrison looked to be winning that fight comfortably in some parts of the early stages until he ran out of gas and eventually got stopped. Now Jarrett Hurd becomes the champion. You now get your chance to get your hands on him in his first defense of the title. I bet you cannot wait to get in there, Austin.
I cannot wait, but you know, I always look at things as, you know, as predestined. I'm a big believer of spirituality, and I don't believe in coincidences. You know, I don't think it was a coincidence that I come back with my next fight for the same belt that I've worked really hard to get. So, you know, I appreciate the IBF for allowing this, and I appreciate Jarrett Hurd for making this fight happen, because it's a voluntary defense. He didn't have to take this kind of fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Credit to Jarrett Hurd for taking the fight. How do you rate Jarrett as a fighter, Austin? Where does he rank amongst some of the other guys that you've boxed previously?
No, he's right up there with all the, you know, top fighters that I've been with. You know, one thing about me is that I'll fight anybody, and you know, he's in the same caliber as definitely as a lot of the fighters that I've been in the ring with.
And one thing that did jump out at me, Austin, and I'm sure that you'll know this as well, Jarrett is obviously a good fighter. He's unbeaten. However, as far as I'm aware, he's fought only 3 southpaws in his career. One he beat on a split decision, one he beat on a majority decision, and one was Jojo Dan, who he stopped in his fight before his last fight. Jojo Dan's the complete opposite to a crafty southpaw like yourself. No disrespect to him, but he's a pretty, well, he's not a great fighter, we will say that. Do you think, being the crafty southpaw that you are, do you think that you will be able to give him a lot of problems with your style?
Absolutely. I think you know, my style is made for a fighter like his. You know, nothing's going to be easy, of course, but, you know, it's definitely going to give me a slight advantage.
Okay. And Austin, you would have been out of the ring for 14 months by the time fight night rolls around on July 29th. Surely that's not ideal preparation for a fight of this magnitude. In your time out, how much of the time was spent in the gym properly training? And you know what I mean when I say properly training.
But, you know, I was never out of the gym fully per se ever. You know, I always try to stay in the gym, whether it was just to stay fit or to not get fat, however you want to call it. I try to stay somewhat active. So, you know, I just say I was probably in the gym, you know, 30% of the time with proper training, I'd say. You know, instead of the, you know, if training camp was 75 to 80% of the time, then, you know, I was there 30-40%.
Okay, fair enough. Austin, I know that you, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was you did a bit of road work the other day and ran into a rattlesnake. Is that right?
Yeah, me and my coach Creed, we found a rattler out there. It was crazy. I wanted to, you know, just move him off the road so he didn't get ran over, but he didn't know that, and he was not happy.
Oh man, I wouldn't want to do any road work out there, that's for sure. As I alluded to earlier, Austin, you've been saying that you're a former and future world champion for a couple of years now. You get another shot here. Do you feel like this is a must-win fight for yourself? Do you see this as a last chance saloon to regain the championship status?
Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? I've always felt like I was in my best odds anyway, and against the wishes of certain. You know, I'm not a Canelo. I don't have a country behind me, but, you know, the fans I do have are organic and authentic. And so, you know, the machines, they want the fans that they can just, push on on a bus and go. So to be, the contender I am and the kind of fighter I am, which is a very dangerous fighter with potentially low reward, if I lose this fight, they're going to, take that chance to not let me back in. But, it doesn't matter what they want. Like I said, it's all predestined. This is all written, and I just have to fulfill it myself.
You're fighting on the undercard of Adrien Broner versus Mikey Garcia, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Austin. Who do you see winning that fight? I cannot wait for the entire card.
Well, I mean, gosh, it's really a pick'em fight. I don't care how you look at it. Mikey Garcia, he's very crafty. He's good at what he does. But Adrien Broner, when he is, what's the word?
On his game.
When he's game, when he's training, when he's focused, that's the word I want to say. When he's focused, that kid is a beast. So, a lot of people trying to write out Broner because he didn't look so great in his last fight. But that wasn't a focused Broner, and he wasn't fighting a Mikey Garcia. So, I know you guys want me to give a prediction, but that's really a pick 'em fight for me. I don't see it being an easy fight for Mikey at all.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we'll let you sit on the fence in that one, but we won't let you sit on the fence in this one. Triple G against Canelo, a man that you've been in there with. Who wins that one? Another huge fight.
Man, I believe Canelo's going to win that fight.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, yeah. Triple G, he's up there in age. Dan Jacobs fight showed us a lot of things. Like, one, his power doesn't carry over, and although Canelo does gas a bit in the later rounds, his explosiveness and his power still, it carries with him. I know it's interesting. Hopefully Canelo is the underdog because I'm gonna put money on Cinnamon, but I got Canelo in that fight. Yeah,
definitely a good fight though, nonetheless. And the final real question for you, Austin, we ask a lot of fighters this question when they've got a big fight coming up. You don't have to give us an answer if you don't want to. Do you have any kind of prediction for the outcome of your fight? How do you see yourself winning that fight?
I feel like I'm going to break him down. I'm not going to predict any kind of knockout, but I'm definitely taking a unanimous decision if he could take what I'm going to give him July 29th.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Austin, just before we let you go, I just really wanted to give you an opportunity to send a message to any of your UK fans. I think last time I did tell you this, you've got a hell of a lot of UK fans over here that are behind you. Any message for them before we let you go?
I appreciate every single one of y'all, and I'm trying to make it to the UK. After I win my belt, and tell Liam Smith he can come to get this work. Hopefully he's got a belt to put up, since they kind of overlooked me for my first belt. But still, I'm trying to make my way to the UK, and I'm down to fight one of your guys' brawlers.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll make for a great fight. Okay, listen, Austin, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for giving us some of your time. Best of luck for July 29th, and we'll no doubt catch up after you become, once again, the present junior middleweight champion of the world.
No, what a blessing. Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the preview part, but as always, before we delve into that, we're going to go to Ayaz with this week's news. He wasn't here last week, it was left up to me, but he returns with the hottest news in the boxing world. Ayaz.
Former British boxer Errol Christie has died from cancer at age 53.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaking thing. Errol Christie's a man that was a fantastic amateur. He won all 10 titles that you could win at the time. He's in the Guinness World Records for that. He never really fulfilled his potential as a professional. He was a well-respected man around the circuit. He had some fantastic fights and nights around the mid-1980s. Errol Christie is, he's a guy that, as I say, he could have gone on to bigger things. He just wasn't able to crack it under the bright lights. So, it's very unfortunate what's happened, of course. It's another death in boxing. It's another premature death because he was only 54. I know that Steve Bunce went to go and visit him just 2 days before he passed away. And Steve Bunce was, on Twitter pleading with people to send him in, get well cards and stuff like that. And he did that literally a few hours after visiting him. He took to Twitter, Steve Bunce, and credit to him, he said, please can we send in some cards for Errol? And a lot of people reacted saying, yep, I'm going to send cards in. Some people were actually designing cards online to send him, pictures of himself on the front cover and some fantastic words enclosed. But unfortunately, by the time those letters would have arrived or potentially been ready to send off, he had already left us. So it's a very sad passing there for Errol Christie, and may God bless him when he does arrive in heaven, of course.
Ian Lewison is to face Robert Helenius over 10 rounds on June 17th in Kalev, Finland.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I know that originally Derek Chisora was supposed to take on Robert Helenius. I'm not too sure what's actually happened there. I don't really know the ins and outs. But Ian Lewison has stepped in, and he's going to be fighting him. So yeah, it should be a decent fight. We'll obviously give that a mention a bit later on in the show. But yeah, that's really all I can say on that one. Should be a good fight. Hopefully Ian Lewison can do a job on him and bring the win back to the UK.
And finally, Dennis Salen will take on Kid Galahad for the IBF Intercontinental Featherweight Championship on July 15th at the Wembley Arena on the undercard of Chris Eubank Jr. and Arthur Abraham.
Yeah, it's been announced just this week. Chris Eubank Jr.'s undercard last time was a pretty decent undercard. It looks like this time it's going to be a pretty decent undercard as well. Now, what I will say is the Dennis Seelan fight against Kid Galahad here, as you just mentioned. Dennis Seelan, when he took on Isaac Lowe, that fight was obviously ended prematurely. It went to I think it was a clash of heads. Dennis Seelan come off a little bit worse, and that fight ended the way it did. Isaac Lowe was gutted about that. He really said that he won't get his chance. He was happy to go straight back out there to try and fight for a rematch straight away. And he said pretty much straight away, they don't want it. They're going to be trying to run from me. And it's a shame to see them come over here to the UK and not ring up Isaac Lowe, because I know that Isaac Lowe would jump at that rematch, as he said before. But no, they're taking on Kid Galahad. I think that Kid Galahad is a whole new kettle of fish compared to Isaac Lowe. I'm not saying that he beats him. I'm just saying that Kid Galahad's a very, very hard man to beat. It's going to be obviously over in the UK. And I just think that this is a much harder fight stylistically than the Isaac Lowe rematch would have been, because Seelan started really well in that fight, and I don't think that Kid Galahad will give him a chance to get into his groove at all. So I think it's a really hard ask there for Dennis Seelan. But yeah, of course we're going to give our man Kid Galahad the best of luck in this fight. That's it for the news you said, Ayaz, yeah?
That's correct.
Okay, moving over now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start with a card happening over in the Masonic Temple, Detroit, Michigan, USA. One fight to mention on this bill. Clarissa Shields, the double Olympic gold medalist, fights for the vacant WBC silver female super middleweight title. She's obviously looking to be fast-tracked for sure. She takes on Mary Rancière, who has a record of 7-8 with 3 draws. It's an 8-round contest, of course, 8 2-minute rounds at super middleweight. All the very best to both girls there. May the best female win. Moving over now to Saturday, because that card just there that I mentioned is taking place on Friday. Moving over to Saturday, one fight to mention over in Argentina, or 2 fights to mention actually. Diego Chavez, former opponent of Brandon Rios, he's in a 10-rounder against Jean Carlos Prada, who has a record of 32-3 with 1 draw. Diego Chavez 25-2 with 1 draw. It's a 10-rounder, as I said, at super welterweight. Should be a decent fight, that one. And also the return of the brother of Marcos Maidana. It's of course Fabian Maidana. He's 12-0 at the moment. He takes on Pedro Verdu, who has a record of 19-15 with 3 draws. It's a 10-rounder at welterweight, that one. All the very best to Fabian Maidana. Moving over now to Denmark at the Ceres Arena. A strange fight caught my eye here. Lolenga Mock, who is fighting now at super middleweight. I remember quite a few years back, Lolenga Mock knocked David Haye down when they fought, when David Haye was a young cruiserweight. And Lolenga Mock is still fighting. in this very day and age. He's got a record of 39-14 with 1 draw, and he takes on our very own Luke Blackledge. Luke Blackledge, last time I saw him fight, he got cleaned out by Callum Smith. So it's a really weird fight, that one. It's a 10-rounder at super middleweight, no belts on the line as well. It's a real strange one. I can't actually believe that they're going to be fighting, but all the very best to Luke Blackledge, 23-3 with 2 draws. May he come back to the UK with the W. And moving over now to the Kovalev in Estonia, as you mentioned, Ayaz, on the news part of the show. We've got to mention it here, of course, as well. Robert Helenius, 24-1 in a 10-rounder at heavyweight. No belts on the line here at all. It's another strange one. Ian Lewison, of course, he stepped in place of Derek Chisora. Ian Lewison, 12-3 with 1 draw. Should be a decent fight, hopefully, anyway. But that's it from Estonia. Moving over now to Germany. Stephen Smith's on the bill, but I'm not too sure who he's fighting, but I will say he's on the bill as well. And also, of course, his older brother fights for a world title yet again. In the other corner, the champion, WBA World Super Middleweight Champion, I will say, Mr. Tyron Zeuger, 20-0 with 1 draw, takes on our very own Paul Smith, 38-6. Of course, it's a 12-round contest. Now, Tyron Zeuger is obviously the younger, fresher guy, Ayaz. We know that. Tyron Zeuger is also a man that's relatively inexperienced at that level. He hasn't really fought anybody of note. His fight with De Carolis was a really close fight, and I don't really think many people are too high on De Carolis. And Tyron Zeuger, you know, they're not really high on him either. He's relatively untested. He's done really well to pick up a version of the title. So, you know, it is what it is. But Paul Smith, he gets another crack at the world title. A lot of people are a little bit unhappy of how he keeps ending up in these title fights after not really beating anybody of note, and I have to agree with that. But Paul Smith's a man that we have to remember at the end of the day. He's British. He's part of the Smith brothers. The Smith brothers have done very, very well for Britain. You know, so we're behind Paul Smith. We want Paul Smith to get the job done. We want him to do the business, and we are definitely behind him. So, you know, it should be a decent fight. I'm going to definitely be watching it. But it could be a potential banana skin. We don't really know enough about Zeuger at this point. Paul Smith, obviously, you know, he's experienced at the world level, but he hasn't won the fights at the world level. So I think it's, you know, it should make for a decent contest. But as I say, we are behind Paul Smith. That one's at the Rittel Arena in Wetzlar, Hessen, Germany. I think I've said that right. Probably not. Moving over now to Italy. And it's very rare that you see a card in Italy that actually seems like a really good card. Now, Italy are famous for padding records like no tomorrow. Top of the bill, Emanuele Blandamora. This is a man that I remember seeing get knocked out horrifically by Billy Joe Saunders. Now, he's in a middleweight contest for the EBU European middleweight title against a man called Alessandro Godi. He's obviously another Italian guy with a record of 30-1 with 1 draw. I've never actually heard of him. He could be really good, but he could have a padded record like the rest of them do. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of these Italians have got really padded records. Also on the bill, a really strange one, Carlos Takam. He's in an 8-rounder at heavyweight. His opponent yet to be announced. His record 34-3 with 1 draw. Obviously a really good you know, contender in the heavyweight division, to be completely honest. Also on the bill, Andrea Di Luisa. That's a former opponent of George Groves. I think he took on George Groves last year. I think it was early last year. I think George Groves stopped him. He's in a 6-rounder. His record 17-4. His opponent yet to be announced. Andrea Scarpa's on this bill as well. Remember, we've seen him in there against John Wayne Hibbert. We've seen him in there against O'Hara Davis. He lost his title, of course, to O'Hara Davis. He's in a 6-rounder. His opponent yet to be announced. His record 21-3. He's a decent fighter, Scarpa. All the very best to him. And also on the bill, a man again with a pretty padded record, to be honest, Devis Boshiero, 41-5 with 1 draw. He fights at super featherweight. He's in a 6-rounder at super featherweight. His opponent yet to be announced as well. Obviously, he's been in there at the European level. I think he even tried to challenge at world level once before, but came up short. But yeah, decent fight there for Italian standards, that's absolutely sure. Moving over now to the Guildhall in Preston, Lancashire this weekend. United United Kingdom. Friend of the show, Dave Allen, returns to the ring. His record 11-3 with 1 draw. He's in a 6-rounder at heavyweight. Also on the bill, Reynold Garrido. We recently saw him up against Frankie Gavin. He came up short, but just short. It was a close-ish fight there between him and Frankie Gavin when it really shouldn't have been. Moving over now to the Waterfront Hall in Belfast, Northern Ireland, United Kingdom. Top of the bill, John O'Carroll, 13-0, takes on John Quigley, 14-0. This one's for the vacant IBF East and West Europe Super Featherweight title. All the very best to both men, to be honest. John O'Carroll's a man that I want to see moved a little bit quicker. John Quigley, I don't really know too much about. I'm going to hold my hands up, but it should be a good fight. Also on the bill, Craig Evans, 16-1 with 2 draws, puts his WBO European lightweight title on the line, the title he won from Tom Stalker. He puts it on the line against Stephen Orman, 24-3. That should be a good fight. I'm looking forward to that one. That's a 10-rounder at lightweight. It's the 3rd fight of Paddy Barnes' professional career. He's fighting for the vacant WBO European flyweight title against a man called Silvio Ultianu, who has a record of 16-11 with 1 draw. And Ultianu's actually a decent fighter, to be honest. His record doesn't suggest it, but he's been in there against some tough guys. So we wish Paddy Barnes all the very best of luck. Moving over now to a fight happening in the US at the Tostito Championship Plaza in the US, of course. 2 or 3 fights to mention on this bill. Joshua Franco, a young prospect, a product of the Robert Garcia gym. His record at the moment, 10-0. He takes on Oscar Mojica, 10-2. This one's for the vacant WBC Youth Silver Super Flyweight title. Also on the bill, Hector Tanahara, friend of the show. He's 9-0. He looks to move to double figures. He's in a 6-round contest at Super Featherweight against Eduardo Rafael Reyes, who has a record of 8-9. And top of that bill, Fidel Maldonado Jr, 23-3 with 1 draw, takes on Pablo Cesar Cano, 30-5 with 1 draw. Cano, I think he's a bit long in the tooth now. He's been in some good fights. He's beaten a few decent guys. This one's for the vacant WBC Fecker Box Super Lightweight title. Some crazy titles on the line this weekend. And now moving over to the big one, of course. We all know about it. It's gone under the radar a little bit. It should be a lot bigger than what it has been. There hasn't been too much talk of it. We're going to start with the undercard. Of course, it's at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. Starting with the undercard, Dmitry Bivol, the undefeated Russian light heavyweight. I remember that he was holding, I think it was the interim WBA belt, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like that's not on the line here. I'm not too sure what's gone on with that, but Dmitry Bivol's a good fighter, 10-0. He takes on Cedric Agnew, 29-2. That should be a fantastic fight. Luis Arias is in a big fight. I know he's wanted a big fight for a long time. He's been on the show before as well. Luis Arias, he is 17-0. He's fighting for the USBA middleweight title against Arif Magomedov, who has a record of 18-1. That should be a really, really good fight. It's a 10-rounder at middleweight. Believe me, that should be an absolute cracker. All the very best to Luis Arias. Also on this bill, Guillermo Rigondeaux, 17-0, takes on Moises Flores, 25-0. A really, really good fight. Moises Flores, finally someone with an unbeaten record who's actually a really good fighter, puts it all on the line. He's highly ranked. He's definitely a fantastic fighter. He puts it all on the line against Rigondeaux. A lot of people have been very, scared to step up to the plate and fight Rigondeaux. Moises Flores shows some balls taking this fight, and that reflects nothing on what may happen. It could be an absolutely fantastic fight, but it's great to see Rigondeaux out again. He's the most avoided man in boxing, so it would appear. His record 17-0, Moises Flores 25-0. The WBA Super World Super Bantamweight titles on the line, and also the IBO World Super Bantamweight title on the line as well. Both men undefeated. Somebody's O has got to go, and we give Moises Flores a lot of credit for taking it. Rigondeaux's a man that makes people look bad even if they're good. So that one should be good. I'm looking forward to seeing him out again. And now the main event, Andre Ward, 31-0, putting his WBA Super, IBF and WBO World Light Heavyweight titles on the line. The belts he won from Sergey Kovalev, who has a record of 30-1. That one loss, of course, to Andre Ward, and he also has a draw. It was a fantastic fight the last time, Ayaz. There was a load load of close rounds. A lot of people scored it differently. Some people scored it to Kovalev. Most people scored it to Kovalev, let's be honest. A lot of people also scored it to Andre Ward. As I said, many close rounds. It was a fantastic fight. It didn't really do great numbers in terms of pay-per-view buys last time out. Hopefully it does a little bit better this time. They definitely deserve it. We rarely ever see two guys at the very top of the sport, both in their prime, so to speak, getting it on. And we saw that last time. We're going to see it again this weekend. We're in for a treat. What are you making of it, Ayaz? What's your thoughts on this fight? Huge fight.
I personally think it's going to be the same fight as the first one before. Obviously, in the first fight, we saw Andre Ward get dropped in the first round by Kovalev. Obviously, we know Kovalev is a very big puncher and Kovalev is very big. But I'll tell you, in the first fight, you see Ward nicking the rounds you can see Ward was nicking the rounds. I reckon, in my opinion, this fight's going to go to points, and I can tell you for a fact it's going to be exactly the same thing as fight when they fought first. I think Ward's just going to beat him on points again. That's how I'm going to go. I've got a feeling Ward's, because I think Ward's jab. I think Ward has got one of the best jabs in the sport, and I reckon that's what he was doing in the last fight. He was winning it with the jab, and in my opinion, I reckon Ward's going to win it. Ward's going to do the same thing what he did in the last fight and win it on points.
Now, I thought that the first fight, I scored the first fight to Sergey Kovalev. I expressed some anger really after that fight. I kind of said, like, how can you score this fight to Ward, especially by more than one round? I wouldn't say it was a robbery, it was really close, but Sergey Kovalev started really well. Sergey Kovalev was imposing his jab early on in the fight. He seemed to tire. He actually came out. I've seen they've obviously done like a HBO. I think it's a HBO show. I can't remember now because it obviously wasn't shown on HBO. It was on the Sky thing, on the Sky Planner. So I watched it on there. But like the 24/7 in the build-up to this, Kovalev openly admits he was done after round 5, and he hung in there. He said he didn't feel any of Andre Ward's punches. I'm not too sure I want to believe that, but he did seem to gas very early. He said that he had overtrained. I think he even said he was doing something like 14 miles running every day. That is just crazy. To do that much road work is just crazy. That's unheard of. Obviously, Sergey Kovalev being the power puncher, Andre Ward being the master boxer. Sergey Kovalev also, you cannot underestimate his boxing skills. He's showed them before. He's been in there with Bernard Hopkins, albeit an old Bernard Hopkins, but it is what it is. The man can box as well. Kovalev, I don't know. He just seemed to kind of slow down, and if he doesn't slow down, I think he wins the fight. I thought he won the first fight, but if he manages to not slow down, if he manages to to not be a bit lackluster after 5 rounds, then I really think that he's going to win this fight more clearly than last time. The easiest round last time to score was, as you said, Ayaz, that knockdown round. You said that you can see the fight going very similar to the last fight. Is that because of you think that Ward's going to win it, etch it out on points, or do you think that one man is going to be tasting the canvas or not? Do you think both men are going to be on their feet for the whole 12, or do you see anyone going down at all?
I personally see both fighters. They're not going to be dropped. None of them. I reckon this is going to be like a chess game.
Okay, so you see Ward winning on points. I'm going to go against you, Ayaz. This may sound a little bit crazy, but I actually have been thinking lately, I think that Kovalev may even be able to stop Ward. But what I will say is, we won't talk about the method of victory. You've gone with Ward, I've gone with Kovalev. The score at the moment in predictions is 5-4 to me. If you win this, Ayaz, you close the gap and we are level. I'm going to go with Kovalev. I think possibly I'm going to go with him on points, but we don't have to say that. I think it could be a knockout, it could be points. You've gone with Andre Ward, and we'll leave it at that. But no, it's a fantastic fight. Hopefully it gets the recognition it deserves. It's a fantastic fight. As I said, 2 guys at the top of the sport, both arguably in the top 10 pound for pound, getting it on. And I really didn't think the rematch was going to come. I think Kovalev needed the rematch. I think Andre Ward was talking about possibly retiring, and I remember hearing him speak and all that, and he just didn't. I don't know, I just kind of thought he was going to retire because I think that fight was too close for his comfort and a lot of people's comfort, and I did not think he'd give him the rematch. So all credit to Andre Ward for taking the rematch. He puts it all on the line. He's got a lot to lose here, not just the belts that he's won off Kovalev, but also the undefeated record. This is I don't want to say it's a legacy damaging fight because Kovalev's a fantastic fighter, and always at the end of the day, on paper, he's got that win the first time over him, regardless of what happens, even if he gets stopped in the first round. So I credit Andre Ward for taking the fight, but all the very best to both men. But for me, I'm going to go with Kovalev. You're going to go with Ward. A fantastic, fantastic fight. And that really wraps up the previewing. We've done the reviewing. We've done the first guest. We've done the previewing. We did the news. It's now time to welcome guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the current WBA Continental Champion, Mr. Robbie Davies Jr. Robbie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show, mate.
Hey, it's my pleasure, my friend. So, Robbie, it's been announced that you'll be fighting on the Chris Eubank Jr. versus Arthur Abraham undercard on July 15th. Now, first and foremost, it's a big deal. It's on ITV. It's going to be the first time you've fought in London as a pro. I bet you're looking forward to all that. How did it all come about for you, Robbie?
Literally, we were waiting around, and I've been having a few shows with like Matchroom and that in the early stages, and then I've been going on a few dinner shows and things like that, but still fighting a decent caliber of opponents, but going slightly under the radar because obviously some of the shows weren't televised. And then all of a sudden, ITV popped up, and then I was set to be fighting on undercards and things like that. And then next minute, on the first platform that came about for ITV4, I ended up topping the bill. And then from then, ITV have taken to me. A lot of the public have built a bit of interest around me, and it's all just really came on from there.
So your opponent has been announced. You'll be fighting Michal Syrowatka, a man with a record of 18-1. That one loss was, if I'm not mistaken, a fight he was winning, and in the fourth round he got stopped. He got hit flush on the temple. It was kind of like a balance thing. He was all over the place. The referee stopped it. However, there was an immediate rematch, which you do know about. He avenged that loss by unanimous decision.
Yeah.
Aside from that, Robbie, do you know much else about the man?
I know as an amateur he was like the number one in the country, European Games, World Championships, things like that. When he went in the Worlds, he got beat by the eventual winner of the whole tournament. So it wasn't really a lot to go off because that same champion beat loads of top names in the same tournament. Obviously, to be the number one in Poland, it isn't like being the number one in Great Britain, though. As you can imagine, obviously our standard is a lot higher in the overall weight categories, and obviously, like, even if you go off as box ref, there's only like 12 or 13 of them in the whole weight, where in Britain there's about 2,000 of us in the one weight. So it is bits and bobs, but I've looked through his record and things like that, looked at a few of the opponents he's beat. When he actually got stopped by, what was his name again?
Jackie Wicks.
See, like, he was past his best at the time as well, although he was a former European champion and he'd fought for world titles. When Mitchell actually boxed him, he was past his best anyway. So I think he'll probably be gutted to have that loss on his record. I think that's why he probably wants to avenge it quickly.
Yeah.
But he's a good all-round fighter. He's in great shape, like myself. Do you know what I mean? No point getting any little chunks at this stage in my career. Obviously, I want someone that's coming in fit, strong, and ready. Obviously, to take him on, and then I'll go to the next level again.
Yeah, absolutely. And Robbie, as you know, you're highly ranked with the WBA. In your honest opinion, would you say that you're ready for the world level fighters in your weight class, or do you think maybe you need a few more learning fights before stepping in against someone on that level?
It depends what world champion you talk about at the time. Like, for like the number 1 and 2 have just fought each other there, like Krill Relic and Rance Bartholomew. Rance Bartholomew is a 2-weight world champion. At a super featherweight and lightweight, and he's undefeated, but I'd fight him in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Krill Relic, he's fought Ricky Burns. I'd do what Ricky Burns couldn't do, and I'd knock him out. Like Ricky Burns, he wouldn't faze me at all either. But then you go to like the next level where you're looking at like Terence Crawford, and maybe some of the fellas that haven't actually got world titles, but they're the elites in the weight. Some of them might have a bit too much experience for me at the moment. Like your Victor Postels, top of my head, like your Lucas Matisses, people like that. Like I said, then they might have a bit too much experience now, because I've only had 15 fights, and after this one, it's still only 16. So although I've moved through the rankings quickly, some of them have been fighting forever. They've been in at like elite level for the last 5-6 years, where I'm only hoping to break onto the scene maybe next year or late this year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was interested to see what you were going to say there, and I think you answered that very well. It is important to, of course, stay grounded, but no, you answered that perfectly. You're in a funny position because obviously you're ranked third in the world with the WBA. Julius Indongo holds the WBA title. However, it's looking like he may unify with Crawford. Whoever wins that will end up with all the belts.
I think
Go on.
He's actually hoping that he gets to unify with the belts, because he's got a mandatory slapped on him by the IBF with Limpinets, Sergio Limpinets, and he's doing his best to stay away from that. He's playing the fool that he's injured, because he's holding out to hope Crawford, because the only way you can get away from a mandatory is by having a unification.
Yeah, of
course.
And
he probably knows Limpinets he'll punch holes in him. Limpinets, if you don't know him, he's like 10 or 12-0. And his whole record, like against 20-0 opponents from the way it go, like he's a handful for anyone. He's a Russian, so I think that's what he's trying to hold out for. And then if there's a regular belt, which with the WBA, the way they have the regular still, someone like Rance Bartholomew or Relic might win that soon, and they might end up mandatory for his other belts for the WBA. So I think Ndongo's really, he's holding out for as quick as he can, for as long as he can, to try and get that unification fight. But if Terence Crawford decides to maybe step up a weight or go for a big mega fight with someone like Pacquiao, and Ndongo will lose the big money fight, and we'll have to fight one of them, I imagine.
Yeah, no, but like I was saying, it's a funny situation, because if they do end up unifying, that's whether he decides to drop the IBF belt or whatever he does. If he does end up unifying, it's good for fans because you know who's the number one man in the division, but it's bad for guys who are contenders like yourself, who may end up having to wait if someone holds all the belts. You know, it could take a long time to end up getting a shot. One man I know that you've previously talked about fighting is your namesake, O'Hara Davis. He's fighting Josh Taylor a week before your fight. Ideally, would you like the winner of that fight next, providing you get through Syrowatka?
I already know who's going to win that fight. Josh Taylor's going to probably either box his head off or stop him late, because that's exactly what I'd have done to O'Hara Davis. He's not on the level people think he's at. People are just falling into a hype train because of what Matchroom have made a good job of doing so, and he's done a good job himself with his talking ability. But he's like, he sent himself to the Lions going up to Glasgow against Josh Taylor. If Josh was to win and I was to win and he wanted to fight me, obviously I could be in a very good position with the WBA after this win. Maybe in a final eliminator, or possibly knocking on the door of a mandatory, whether it's against Ndongo or whether it's just for a regular WBA version of the belt, like for what Paul Smith and Zoig are fighting for. So for them to want to fight me, it'd have to be basically everything on my terms, because they've got nothing I'd want, and I've probably got everything they'd want, if you understand that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So you said there that you think Josh Taylor wins that fight. Have you got any kind of personal favouritism in there, like who you'd want to win? I suppose it's probably Josh Taylor.
Oh,
right?
No.
Oh no,
Honestly, okay. No. I'm just giving my honest opinion. I've known Josh for a long time. I know he's a good tactical fighter, and things I can see with O'Hara, and me and my coach looked at with O'Hara, and what we can pick up on pretty easy. I'm sure Taylor and his team can as well. Like I seen an interview with O'Hara the other day, and he says he doesn't have no tactics going into a fight. He says you just gets in there and done it. I said, well, if that is the case, you're going about it the wrong way.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So those two guys just mentioned, O'Hara and Josh, you're all roughly around about the same kind of level in terms of progression at this point. Most people would say that those two are bigger names than yourself. You've in many ways got to where you are today in the shadows, behind closed doors. Do you like the fact Robbie, that the spotlight and the pressure isn't on you at this point? Do you like the fact that you've kind of done it? All of a sudden you've jumped up, but it's not all of a sudden. You've worked towards it, but you've just kind of emerged on that stage at the moment.
What it is, like all them are all like calling each other and doing everything, and they're all fighting each other, but they're all falling off the mountain one by one, and I'm just going up the other side on my own. No one's calling me out, no one's bothering me, and I'm not bothering any of them, and I'm just taking over one by one, and I'm slowly getting up to the top. Like now, one of them have got to lose now, another one's going to fall off. Like there's other good lads in our weight category that are fighting each other. Can't think of the two names now. Jack and Nurse. One of them lose, one of them fall off. So then there's only three. It's just how your progression moves on. When whoever's left at the top, hopefully I am one of them, and then I'll fight whoever's at the top with me. But the way I've been progressing now, like without sounding like I think I'm too good for the British scene, which I know there's a lot of great fighters. I've like gone past it now, and if I win this fight, I could be made up on the world stage, where some of them have got a long way to go to get to where I am. And that's probably because I done it in the shadows with no moaning, didn't beg for crumbs off none of these promoters' plates, and just kept my mouth shut, kept my head down and worked. And with me manager and my team around me, we're slowly getting there.
Yeah, I have to say I do admire that. Something that you touched on just briefly, you mentioned Paul Smith and Zoiga, their situation fighting for the regular belt. Obviously, yeah. You're from the same neck of the woods as the Smith brothers. Are you a fan of the Smith brothers? A lot of people aren't, but are you?
I get on with the Smiths. Yeah, I like Liam. Liam is probably the one who I speak to the most if I see him out or anything like that. And when I was first turning pro, I asked Paul little bits of advice and things like that. So, and obviously, whenever me and Callum were fighting, we always wish each other luck and things like that.
Yeah.
So I have a good relationship with them. I'm not like best mates with any of them, but I would never walk past any of them without letting on or having a little chat with any of them.
They do say in Liverpool you'll never walk alone, but yep, of course. No, they're all good guys. We wish Paul the very best, of course, this weekend. Obviously, as I said, you're fighting on the undercard of Chris Eubank Jr. and Arthur Abraham. Have you got any kind of opinion on how that fight may play out? It's a really good fight. In my opinion.
My honest opinion, I think, because a lot of fighters struggle with the work rate of Chris Eubank because he's so fit, not so much his punch power, more his work rate and his volume of punches. And I think because of Arthur Abraham's style, where he like plods you, walks you down, makes you work for the first 2 minutes of the round, and then tries to jump on you for the last minute, I just don't think them tactics are going to work at all against someone like Chris Eubank. He'll do 2 minutes at a decent pace, and then when you try to go up a pace on the last minute, he'll go up with you. So I think Arthur Abraham's only chance is if he gets that lucky punch, which in boxing anyone can get, as we've seen many times before. It's happened before and it'll happen again. But in my honest opinion, I think it'll be a shutout for Eubank on points.
Yeah, no. Nonetheless, a good fight, but no, I have to agree with most of what you said there. And your final chance to give a prediction for the big fight this weekend, Andre Ward Kovalev getting it on for the second time. Of course, a big fight, probably gone under the radar a little bit. But what's your take on that one?
Yeah, well, I watched the first one, and like Kovalev in the first 5 rounds, he was sharp and he was everywhere. And boom, shots were banging in. But then it was like from round 5, round 6, he just went flat. And I think Kovalev knew that. I think he said something similar to it in one of his interviews after the fight. And he's been saying in this one, he's not going to make that mistake again, because when he went flat, it was what gave Ward a chance to even come into the fight at all. But with Andre Ward, even if you doubt him, he always finds a way. He's one of them fighters. It doesn't matter how he does it or what he has to do to win. He just does it. He's got a great team around him. If I had to pick someone, I'm talking like ones evens and ones 5-6 odds. I'm talking I'd give it slightly favouring Andre Ward.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a general consensus, but I'm going against the grain. I think Kovalev pulls off the win here. I'm not too sure how, but definitely a mouth-watering clash anyway. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sorry, go on.
I was say, like, that's what I was saying. Kovalev, like the last one, it was controversy, and he said he went flat from round 5. If he's different in this fight and he's more energetic, well, you say could be right.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But nonetheless, though, either way, it's going to be a good fight. Hopefully, it's not too close this time. That's one thing. And the final real question for you, Robbie. You don't have to give it to us if you don't want to. Have you got any kind of prediction for your fight? How you think you're going to win come July 15th?
It all depends how he approaches the fight. I've seen him in a few, even though he's short and stocky and very muscular. He looks intent to go on the back foot and have a move. I think in his amateurs, he was a bit more of a mover. I even got one of his national finals up, which he was nowhere near as technically as good as he's in a younger age as he is now. His hands got everywhere and everything, but he had a move, like he'd jab and move and slip and things like that, where I think he's intent to go backwards. But if he comes to meet me in the middle, I think that'll be his downfall, because I'm a pressure fighter, and if a pressure fighter meets a pressure fighter, that's who wants it most. And when it comes to the battle of will, I don't think anyone will beat me. And I think I'll just smash him up on the inside. But if he goes on the move, it might be a long night and might be a point win. But it all depends on what way he approaches the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Either way, the win is the most important thing, of course. All right, just before we let you go, Robbie, I just want to really give you a chance to give anybody a shout-out, give anybody a mention, perhaps sponsors, your team, your trainer, your manager, anybody you like. Just take it away.
I'd just like to thank my manager, Neil Marsh, for getting me in this great position on ITV, for getting me on this great show. My coach, Dave Tonks, and Joe Tonks and Alan Kaufman. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. My advisors, Steve Latham and Paul Smith, my physio, Ben Sterling, and my nutritionist to keep me in the best shape possible, John Clark. Just like to give them a little shout out, because I'm glad you said that, because most of the time I don't normally get a chance to do that for these type of people, and they've been with me from day one, and I'm happy I've just got to say that for them.
Hey, you can always do that on our show, my friend. Okay, listen, Robbie, it's been a pleasure having you on this week's show. Best of luck for July 15th, and no doubt we'll catch up again very soon.
Oh, yeah, anytime. Just give me a bell, and I'm always there about on my phone. Never out my hands. All right, thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time to conclude episode 87 of the BoxHard Podcast. Just before we end it, whilst we've been recording this show, 2 big fights have been announced. Carl Frampton will face Mexico's Andres Gutierrez on July 29th in Belfast, and the circus act of a fight, that is Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, has been confirmed also. Myself and Ayaz will discuss that fight in more detail on next week's podcast. A big thank you to our 2 guests, the former WBA Super Welterweight World Champion Austin Trout and the future WBA Light-Welterweight World Champion Robbie Davies Jr. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. Remember, if you get a chance to leave us a review on iTunes. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. Thank you all for listening.